Are you hosting?
No, but it's always when you've seen somebody very vulnerable to be on stage without a microphone. I think.
Do you think? I think it's quite nice, no, being like rattling about.
Well, this is why we'll make a compelling discussion.
Thank you, everyone, for coming. Thank you to everyone for coming to Parental Guidance number 3 with the very brilliant comedy writer and creator of Big Boys, Jack Rooke.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming, Jack, because I know you're very busy at the moment.
Well, of course. Thank you for having me.
I was worried you were going to be a bit hungover today because you were at the Vogue party last night.
Yeah, but I am a bit hungover.
Repping rich parents.
It was so fun being in a room in Mayfair full of some of the most rich, young whippersnapper kids going, and just me. I just kept on going. And do you? And a lot of people were like, yeah, I do actually, but I really try to do a lot of stuff in my community, and I was like, but they were all my friends. I was like, you don't need to worry about it.
Yeah, people are quite. The response to the rich parents thing has been quite interesting because at first people really took it. It was a lot of very wealthy people did just want to wear the T-shirt
because they have rich parents.
Because they have rich parents, and it took a while to kind of really cement like what it was all standing for and supporting working class creatives. Which you are one of.
Yes, but I think I have a murky thing with class because I've been, I would say, middle class for about a decade now. So, but my family and my home life, whenever I go home, I'm like, oh yeah, that's a different set of morals, principles, and world. Not that it's really that different to mine because it's shaped and informed who I am, but I do live in Islington now, and I am wearing a suit.
And you are off to a.
And I did buy like me 10 years ago. I'd have been like, you can have one small bag of squares, whereas now I'm like, I'll chuck the cheddars and the Pringles in.
You did just eat a packet of squares though, and didn't offer me one.
No, because I'm still ultimately working class.
So Jack, what was your kind of upbringing then, in like the creative sense of the way? Like, were your parents creative?
No, not really. My dad was a black cab driver, and it meant that he would get given back in the day when like black cabs were like the sort of like kind of bougie kind of like people, but they would have customers in the back that like might want to ask the cabbie, oh, what should we do? What restaurant should we go to? Where should we go? So theatres and big like theatre production companies used to give black cabbies free tickets for all their shows. So I remember my dad would be like, do you want to come see this play? And I'd be like, no, it looks shit. Do you want to come do this? And I'd be like, no, it looks shit. And then every now and then there'd be something that I'd be like, yeah, go on then, I'll take the free tickets. So we went to see Little Britain Live at the Hammersmith Apollo, and my lord, what a show! And it's inspired me to this day. No, it was an odd one. And then we went to see a play about Tommy Cooper's death. We went to see The Woman in Black.
Oh,
has anyone seen The Woman in Black?
Yeah.
She's shaking on that rocking chair at the end.
I was warned not to see that because it's too scary.
It's fucking frightening.
I can't do anything scary. I can't do like Simpsons Halloween episode.
Treehouse of Horror, no. Oh. Look behind you.
Stop.
No. But yeah, so there was a sort of slight like kind of smattering of doing stuff, but really never like, it was never really that encouraged. And the only reason we went because it was free. Yeah. So there was never really a moment where we sort of paid to access any culture or cultural institutions. And then when I started going in my teenage years, I remember finding them all quite sort of intimidating. Like, find galleries quite intimidating.
How long do you leave it when you look at a piece of art? Like, do you just count in your head?
I've looked at it. No, it's weird because art is something I never really cared for or about or really understood. I remember when I was like 21, I lived in a property guardianship in Bermondsey, and it was really close to the White Cube Gallery. And I remember some like friends of mine taking me around the White Cube, and we almost had like a full-on row because I was like, why is there all this fucking empty space? You could build houses here. There could be flat, like, this is just loads of, like, every room I went into was like near empty. I was like, this gallery could be an eighth of the size, and you could build this many homes and this, and I always had a kind of big chip on my shoulder about arts exhibition spaces being too big. And obviously, it's like, no, we need to have space for art. It's important to have space for art. But I do think the White Cube is a bit too big.
It is a big cube.
It is a big cube. And considering what the local, hello guys, come on in. I'm just slagging off art galleries. But yeah, that used to sort of be a bit of a chip on my shoulder, especially because like when I was in my early 20s and trying to live here, trying to like afford living here, and and it's still the case now, was just like nigh impossible. I just lived with mates. I lived on a sofa for 3 months. I like was sort of just doing anything I could to still be able to do a creative career, but also not have to move back to Watford. But I also believe strongly that I have something called M25 privilege, which is like, we live just outside the M25, but I do think inside the M25, you just can access so much more than those more rural places around the country where it is just harder to get access, or even just feel like culturally you're being depicted well, or like there's just less engagement. And I think, so I definitely always think I really benefited from being within the motorway.
When did you first start writing?
When I was like 16, I did a project at the Roundhouse in Camden, which is like an amazing art space music venue, and underneath the main stage there's all these like creative hubs and different rehearsal rooms and studios and like DJ mixing booths and a radio station, blah blah blah. It was like the coolest youth centre ever. And so on Wednesdays after school, I would get the train from Watford to Finchley Road, and I'd get the 31 bus from Finchley Road to the Roundhouse. And the 31 bus at the time, it was very culturally relevant because Talisa and Dappy would often mention it on the hit singles that N-Dubz were putting out at the time. So I'd always be like, I'd be on the bus being like, where's Dappy? Where's Phaser? Like really adamantly looking for them.
For those who don't know who N-Dubz are, how could you summarise their art?
N-Dubz are a band formed in Camden, and the name N-Dubz comes from the postcode NW, whereby they hailed from. They were a Greek family, which plays really not much relevance or inspiration to the music they made. However, does mean that quite often Louis Walsh would call Talisa Cuntastavlos, and I'd be like, you're the only fucking Cuntastavlos on that panel, Louis Walsh, because she did judge on the X Factor for a bit. But I don't know, it was a really lovely time because my dad died when I was 15, and because he was a black cab driver, I sort of spent a lot of time in London with him, would go visit a lot of his mates, and he was really great at like introducing me to sort of the sticks and the bricks. Like he would be like, we'd go see his friends, and they were from all different class backgrounds. Like my mum's friends are pretty much all working class. All my mum's family are pretty much all working class, still living in council housing. But my dad, I think maybe he had friends from all over. So sometimes we'd go to like Highgate, and he'd drive me through Bishop's Avenue where all like the rich Russian oligarchs were, or I don't know, some warlords or oil barons or stuff like that.
Or just empty housing.
Yeah, or just like, well, actually most likely empty houses. And then he'd take me to like Hillingdon, and we'd go spend time in like the 17th floor of a tower block, and I'd be like, and all of the black cabbie mates would all be there, and I just remember there being like so much egg fried rice. For some reason, there was an explosion of like egg fried rice in the black cab community where everyone was like, that's a good Chinese, that's a bad Chinese, that's a good Chinese. Go to the Chinese by the top of Fortune Green or off the West End Road in West Hampstead because that's a bloody good Chinese. Like Chinese food really had a big pop in the early 90s. And then, and so I think it gave me a good experience of being like, it just sort of, I don't know, it helped me feel like I had a foot in both worlds at the time. And then when I was like, about 5 or 6, we moved out the council flat where I was born, and my mum and dad, because of Right to Buy, Margaret Thatcher, boo, but also my mum will be like, well, she did help me buy a house, and I'll be like, yeah, mum, but she also fucked everyone else over. They got a house, and so I definitely feel like I've had a sort of dual class experience growing up, but culturally way more in the working class, and the arts was never really pushed onto me. It was only exposed to me if it was free. Apart from music and sitcoms, like music was played all the time. We'd constantly go see like live local bands and local pubs and like local comedy nights.
You never want to join a band?
Yeah, I always wanted to join a band, but like, I don't know. Do you know, when I was like, I once had, and I still believe to this day it's the greatest magazine cover. Beth Ditto did a nude shoot for the front cover of NME.
Yeah.
Does anybody remember it? Beth
it.
Ditto, and that was on my wall. And I think my dad looked at that and went, interesting. An interesting sign of what's to come. And now Beth Ditto lives around the corner. I bump into her all the time. She's always got Oatly, and I'm always wanting to be like, that's a really bad brand of milk, I have to say. Yeah, so I think like music and sitcoms were like basically the things that I like buzzed off of and loved. And actually that still remains to this day. But I've definitely started to enjoy art. I went to New York last year and I went to somewhere called the Brooklyn Museum. I don't know if anyone's ever been, but like my friends that I went with who were like middle class and proper like people who went to art school and blah, 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 they like took us around the MoMA and took us around the Whitney, and I was like, I'm fucking bored. This is so long. It's 6 floors. It's too much. It's overwhelming. I'm always in the way. I sort of feel quite inherently always in the way in a lot of art spaces, both being bigger and then also like probably realistically having a slight disrespect for them and being like, oh, I don't really get why this is such a like sacred space. Like I yeah. Whereas when I went to the Brooklyn Museum, which is more of a kind of community-run museum, and the whole like first 2 floors, like all local artists and people brand new, like people who've been encouraged to make in their community, and it like made me cry and sob and weep. I was having the best time ever. But I just
the first time you've been moved then by art.
Yeah, and now I like going to smaller galleries in places because I just think they're maybe a bit less pretentious, or there's a bit less kind of. I find a bit less effort, and I think this is, a big reason why I kind of want to speak about the arts a bit more and accessibility to the arts, because there is such a strict there's such a conduct of how you behave in those spaces, or how you do stuff, or how loud you are, or how quickly you walk, or where you put your things. I remember once going to them and being like, "You've got to put your stuff in a cloakroom," and I was like, "I'm not putting. There's expensive stuff. I'm not putting that in a cloak." Like as if it was a club. I was like, "No, I'm not doing that." And everyone was like, "Well, you can't come in." I was like, "Fine, I won't come in then." And then I'm like, "Right," and then it was like, "Calm down, we're at a nice gallery," and I'm like, "Okay, yeah." But I think I've been a couple times to see the Rothko exhibition, because there's something about those that because it's just like a colour and a colour.
Yeah, and then
I find that really moving. I don't know why. I've sobbed at a Rothko.
I think that Rothko's been ruined for me by like TikTok, because I keep seeing these like TikTok artists who are doing these
Rothkos,
doing their own takes on Rothkos, and they're doing like paint with one brush and then they they just smear it around the middle, but it's like TikTok sped up, like for people like me who can't.
My favourite
gallery
are the blokes who like have concocted some sort of bucket hanging from the ceiling, and they've drilled some holes in it, and then they put the paint, and then they like swing it, and then it's just making like a sort of Camden Market Cyberdog spiral pattern.
But this is your algorithm.
This is my algorithm. That's the art I get given. It's kind of like Camden Market art. And
you've never really there's a lot of kind of social media first kind of comedians and people who come up through social media. That's never been really at the forefront of your work. Is there a choice in that?
I just don't know if it's something I'd be very good at. But I think I sort of use the internet in a more kind of promotional way to sell the work that I would like to make in a different space. I think I'm also a bit traditional. I see a lot of people making comedy and doing the sort of front-facing camera videos, and every now and then they're fun. But I don't see that. I think that's a really valid route in for a lot of people, and actually has slightly democratized it, so that a lot of the people who have been making those sort of videos, who aren't like Cambridge Footlights people, are able to have a bit of a seat at the table and other opportunities. I think some of the SNL gang are like that, and especially some of the writers. But yeah, it's just never really been my thing. But I think that's because I sort of don't feel funny enough to say I'm an outright stand-up comedian, because there's always been, my work has sort of always been about grief, or it's always had a sort of kind of socio-political point in it, but very thinly layered. And so I've never really done I tried to do an hour of dick jokes in 2019. And I'd
What's
say
that called,
I'd
that
say
show?
mid lukewarm reception. It was called Love Letters, and even then, like I'm just going to do an hour of pure stand up, pure dick jokes, going to be really silly. And then like halfway through, I was like, oh, this would be great if I could have a live harpist. So I had a live harpist on stage the whole time, and then it ended up like sort of accidentally being theatre again. So I think I sort of rally against theatre, but I think I'm a fringe theatre comedian, is what I would describe. And I'm really proud of that now. I think for a long time I felt really like, ugh, but now I'm like, no, I think I sort of know who my peers are a bit more.
You touched on, in your recent BAFTA craft acceptance speech, you touched on like the Edinburgh Fringe and the kind of the cuts to the funding of access to getting into the festival. What was your experience of the Fringe Festival when you were doing it?
Well, yeah, I went, so I'd done sort of years at the Roundhouse of being kind of like a creative young person and writing stuff, and then I started developing a sort of one-man, hour-long theatre comedy show there. And really everyone was like, well, this could really work at the Fringe, but you're going to need a lot of help. So my first experience going was like doing a crowdfunder. There used to be this amazing resource called Ideas Tap. They sort of helped me with a bit of accelerator money. I got support from Arts Council England. I had a lovely relationship manager there who was like, really, really like, this is writing. This is like a proper bit of writing, but it's great that you're blending comedy with theatre, with projections and stuff. So my first show, which is called Good Grief, was a sort of series of films that I'd made on my degree. So I went to Westminster University and studied journalism, and I got a full scholarship to go, and I absolutely hated it, but I loved everyone there. Like, I didn't really ever feel, I say I absolutely hated it. I definitely didn't absolutely hate it, but it was never like...
Completed it?
I completed it, and it was a really valuable experience. And like, I don't think any of my family really wanted me to go, and everyone was, because my brother was like, "Fucking people go to uni, just get a fucking job." I remember him saying all the time, "Just get a fucking job." When I went to uni, he didn't even say bye or well done when I got in or anything. He was just like, "That's a disgrace. Like, students are piss takers. They're taking from they're just dossing about, and they just go and get a job." There's like a couple lines in Big Boys where my nan's character is like, "Can you just get a job?" And now you've done uni, go and get a job. It's sort of like I've sort of been on a 3-year holiday park. But no, I actually did like uni, but I found I just didn't really particularly ever want to become a journalist. It was quite dry writing to do. It's like you just state that, depending on what kind of journalism you peddle, you're either a cunt or a bore. That's a lie. There are some good journalists. I'm sorry, that's a lie. But I really felt like I would either be one of the two.
Try and kind of get some comedy in your journalism.
Yeah, I was, and then I was always marked down for it. I thought I wrote a really funny review of Madonna's 2012 album MDNA, and everyone was like, "You've just made loads of jokes about her divorce to Guy Ritchie," and I was like, "Yeah, that's what I thought the album was about." I did a court. We went to court in Harrow. We went to Harrow Crown Court. We had to watch the proceedings and then report on the court case. And I would sort of like, what? So to Madonna? No, to the court person in court. No, I didn't. We weren't allowed to. But I then wrote up the court case and made it sort of quite fun. And they were like, no. And I got my marks back and it was really low. And they were like, it's a court case. It doesn't need to be a spoken word ad for a bank. Let's keep it on. I was sort of like, well, it was quite emotional. There was a guy in Wembley Park who brought a machete to a party. And I personally was like, that's terrifying, but it might be funny. Not funny. He didn't do anything with it, but he just possession. Anyway, and then so basically I did projects at the Roundhouse, and I started writing a show, and I wrote it with my nan, and it was sort of I wrote Good Grief with my nan. So my nan is in the show throughout, in lots of projections and films that we did, and it was my last month at uni. And at uni you could hire out loads of free equipment, and I thought, I've got to do it now, or else I'll never do it. So me and my mate Jordan, we took all these cameras and mics, and we went to my nan's little council flat in Uxbridge, and we just set up a little documentary film crew there and interviewed her all day. And it was on Father's Day 2014, and the sort of whole crux of it was like, what's your experience losing a child versus my experience of losing a parent? Because she was 80 when my dad died, and we just kind of wanted to sort of look at grief and the processes of going it from two different ages, and the sort of how we were both, because it sort of was the wrong way of happening. No one should lose a child and no one should lose a parent that young. The show was sort of about how people are really kind of awkward when you're grieving. Come on in, guys. I'm just talking about my dead dad again. I do apologise. But yeah, so that was the sort of basis of Good Grief. And then I took all these films and then I sort of took them to the Arts Council and was like, I want to make a documentary. And they were like, we can't give you money for that. But what about if you wrote little stories and the things that you want to say around the films and made it like a one-man show? And that like completely changed my life because I was like, oh, great, I didn't know you could do that. And then I did it. And if you ever watch, I mean, I'm doing Good Grief again 10 years on. And the reason of doing that is because it was such a cut and paste show. It's not slick. None of the video editing is very good. Some of the transitions are like watching like a Microsoft PowerPoint presentation from 2000. Like it's really scrappy and put together. But I was like, that to me should be sort of like celebrated because like that was all I could do with the tools I had. I couldn't have done Fleabag or Baby Reindeer or any of those like more slicker Edinburgh Fringe shows to kind of TV journeys. Like those tools and that money and that experience wasn't at my disposal at the time. Not that they were necessarily like Fleabag were still made on the cheap, but I just like it was just very DIY and scrappy how we made it. And yeah, as I was saying, had ideas to have funding, and then Underbelly, the venue gave me a really good deal. So we kind of took bits of money from all sorts of places, and I think, and then I went to the Fringe, and it did really well. It was a sort of kind of sleeper hit. It was like it was like one of the.
You want to be that though, don't you? You don't want to be like the overhyped.
No,
kind of
we were like 4 p.m. in the smallest room in a cave, and we were like had a 58-seater venue, and then by like the second week we were selling out. And our first like 3 or 4 reviews were all 5 stars. And then the New York Times was coming in, and then Lynn Gardner at The Guardian was but truly there was no PR. I produced the show, PR'd the show. My friend Ollie did the tech.
Were you selling the tickets out front?
I was flyering every day, like 2 hours of flyering, stapling things onto flyers, and then didn't have to flyer from like maybe like the end of the second week. Everyone was like, you don't need to flyer anymore. And I was like, I get it. There was still not, but I have to say, that moment, really, and this is such a like poncy thing to say, but that will always be more fun than winning a BAFTA.
Really?
Like, winning a BAFTA is nice, and it's nice for my mum, and it's nice to be like, cool. But like, you know, it's like, it's over and done with. Like, you go there, you have a nice time, you win, you lose. We mostly lost, but it's nice to win. And then you know, you just have to be around like loads of coked up telly people all night. Yeah. Whereas like when you're at the Fringe and somebody says you don't have to flyer anymore, like, oh my God, that feeling is just like, we did it! Like I think it's my proudest achievement still today.
How does it, because you're performing Good Grief 10 years on, how does it feel kind of doing that show again after 10 years and not changing it at all?
Yeah, so I do like a different introduction for the first like 10 minutes, a sort of updated version an updated introduction to sort of give context to why we're doing it again. And then I do the show in its entirety, pretty much as normal. And then I sort of come on at the end and kind of talk about the environment in which we made it. So it's kind of like, it's sort of like doing a show. It's a bit, I'm sort of doing stand-up at the start, then I do the theatre show, and then it's kind of a bit like a lecture at the end. But really, I then list all of the streams of funding that made that show and how they're all gone, how they've all been cut, how all of those organisations or those particular relationship managers that I had or the particular funds that I benefited from even after Good Grief have gone. So Big Boys in particular, you know, even though I'd done 3 Fringe shows at that point, I'd written a pilot and it was kind of based on Good Grief and my other Fringe work. And then we tried to get it made at the BBC, made a pilot for the cheapest possible amount the BBC have ever made a comedy pilot.
Dare you disclose?
It was like it was a 5-figure sum. Most comedy pilots are made with like at least 150 grand, but we didn't even get into 6 figures. So, and it really felt like they were like, oh, let's just do this and like bang it out and see. And then we made it and the BBC were like, nah, not for us. And I was like, okay, fine.
You felt like, how was that feeling? Because like, I imagine when you get a pilot, do you see that in your head as this is a done deal, or did you see it very much as a pilot, very risky?
I always saw it as like, this is going to be really difficult to try and get off. But I was always thinking, how do I try and make this as accessible as possible? But you've also got like some commissioners at that time in 2017, 2018, who would say, gay don't rate. And they could only see the show as a gay comedy. They couldn't see that the character of Danny, played by John Point, like they couldn't see that it was about a heterosexual widowed mother and a quite straight, vulnerable white guy. And like they could just see it's written by a gay person and there's a gay leader who makes a couple of gay jokes in the first minute. It must be a gay comedy. Like, and even to the very end of Big Boys of Channel 4, there are still commissioners that just go like, oh, it's so nice to have had a gay and I'm like, oh, like, fine, just like, cool. Like, there's obviously that is a strand in it, but like, to just completely call it that, I find really like a bit reductive. But they didn't really get it. The BBC didn't really like it. I think there was one commissioner who loved it, and then the head of comedy who just really hated it. And so that it got cancelled. And then we took it to E4, and then E4 were like, "Can you make it like the In-Betweeners?" And I was like, "Oh, I'll try." And then there's sort of couple really awful like punani jokes where I was like, yeah, gonna go out and try and get a bit of punani, and someone's like, do you say panini? I love a panini. And it was just that sort of comedy.
So like, how much are you losing of your original idea when you're kind of going to each commissioner?
A lot. And actually, when we did that at E4, I lost my rag and I said, you can hand that into E4, but you've got to take my name off it. Which is such a fucking diva move. I would never do that now.
Because it's so far away from your original intent.
Yeah, I was really pissed off. Yeah. Like, I sort of feel like I've had a career of, at times, like, unknowingly being quite provocative or quite sort of gobby. But me just being like, oh, I'm being honest and transparent, but actually it really like, and people were really like, the execs were like, we've never had somebody say that they don't. And I was like, well, you've put loads of shit jokes about punanis in there.
God, I'd hate to like be on the board meetings of that.
Yeah.
You know, like the back and forth, trying to cram the punani jokes.
Trying to cram a punani in. Despicable.
God.
And then E4 commissioned it. They commissioned it on the 28th of February, 2020. And they were like, let's have a kick-off meeting on the 20th of March, 2020. And then the world went to sleep. As if we all died. I'm so sorry, I don't know why I said that. Well, yeah.
We all locked down.
And then by the start of April, they uncommissioned it and ungreenlit it.
You can't do that.
Yeah, they did. They were like, we don't have the money to make it anymore. So they'd committed and then pulled it. And I remember being like, it's been cancelled twice. It's never going to happen. And then we took it. Then one person at Channel 4 comedy called Fiona McDermott really loved it and was like, oh, maybe we should find another way. And like, we feel really bad because we told Jack a green light. It's not Jack's fault somebody ate a bat in Wuhan, if that's what you believe. And then they like commissioned me to write 2 more episodes. So I wrote 4 episodes of a 6-episode series. At this point, I was like, I know what the show is. Like, let's just fucking make it. And they were like, oh, we're still not sure. And then a guy called John Petrie, who is now the director of BBC Comedy, and is a really good producer, actually, even though he's mostly known as a commissioner now. He's a brilliant producer, and I would hope to work with him as well one day. He was like, there's something called the BFI, Young Audiences Content Fund, and they've got quite a bit of money, and they want to help make TV shows that get young people watching public service broadcasting again. Let's apply. And I remember applying for this grant and being like, this is our last shot, and we got it. And they funded 51% of Big Boy Series 1 was funded by the BFI Young Audiences Content Fund. 49% came from Channel 4. And so it's all public money, essentially.
I'm shocked by that. I thought it would be all... I didn't know that you had to kind of subsidise your money from other pockets.
Yeah, because we could... the show was deemed so British and so local and, like, essentially working class. Like, it was put... There was a lot of people being like, that's a very small show. It's a very... Like, it's a gay show, it's a niche show. It was like put in all of these various different categories. And then Series 1 came out, and yeah, it did like really, really well. And then the week after Series 1 of Big Boys came out, the government shut down the BFI Young Audiences Content Fund. And we were like, oh, great. Like, will we be able to make a second series?
Because
we were
the
like,
big boy effect.
yeah. So a sort of kind of a part of doing Good Grief was to sort of try to make something that charted what I felt, which was that I got my foot in the door just as somebody was planning to, like, not even shut the door, but like actually remove the door, decommission the door in itself. And so I feel incredibly lucky for that, but I also feel really depressed because then I look at the writers coming up behind me or after me, and they are some of the most privileged people I've ever met in my entire life, especially in comedy and especially right now. And there was just a moment last year where I was like asked about doing a panel conversation, and every other writer on it had a parent who worked in film and TV. So no one is noticing either. Because these writers in question, some of them are really talented, and some of them are great, and some of them really make me laugh. One of them is a good friend of mine, and so I never wanted to approach sort of. I never really wanted to have any animosity, but I did want to be like, we should acknowledge this, because if these are the new shows coming through, and if we're not going to get Lisa McGee, who wrote Dairy Girls, to stay on Channel 4, and we're not going to get, another series of Alma's Not Normal from Sophie Will, and if we're going to just constantly lose this other set of writers who I think are writing about regional, local, specific, like very British coming of age stories that range from the really funny and slapstick and silly like Dairy Girls to something way more personal like Alma's Not Normal, or something really insanely creative like Juice. Like, there's so much stuff, so much like rich territory there. But I do think there's a few things at play, and one is sort of producers and commissioners sort of not seeing the class disparity and not really. So I don't think it's a purposeful phasing out of the working class voices, but I do think that is there. But I also think it's a huge part of the funding model of the arts being under such intense strain. So like when that BAFTA craft speech, I really genuinely was not expecting to win. So everything I said just came out my mouth because I'd spent a week doing a bit of work for the Roundhouse in this new commission that's looking to sort of lobby the government to try and improve young people's access into the arts. And I've just been thinking about it all week. And then when I won the BAFTA, I was like, I'm just going to fucking say that. Because I
thought you'd memorised it.
But because I was going through all these fucking statistics. And actually, I got one of the statistics wrong. There's one, like...
Was it 81% or something?
No, it was 93% of Edinburgh Fringe funding has been cut, which is correct. That Keep It Fringe fund, 93% has gone. But it was that I said that 40% of state schools are phasing out drama and music, and it's actually 47%. And that's not going to get better under a reform government either.
Well, I was going to bring it up because I woke up and I was very depressed until I got... what do you think... What do we need to do, or what needs to be done in order for there to be better access for people?
Well, it sort of needs to be critically done, like, now. And I think that's why I sort of said in the speech, I was like, it sort of needs to be, like, urgently done, because anything that we try and do in the next 2 or 3 years... before the next government, which is likely to be a reform government, needs to be put in place and needs to be quite ironclad and needs to be up and running to try and ensure that whatever they're going to get rid of or continue to phase out. I mean, I don't really know what reforms like arts policy is, but I really can't imagine it's that rich or detailed. I think it is probably like, let's get Little Britain Live back on again. All the back cab drivers. But like, so that really concerns me, and it concerns me that state schools are the place where a lot of that arts funding, well, a lot of those it's like a discouragement. It's like a don't do an art subject. It's not going to get you anywhere. It's not going to help you. And when you look at the TV and film industry, and it is like 7 or 8% of the workforce are working class, and it is, and also I am really truly do need to say this. I'm saying this now as a middle class writer who lives in Islington. So, like, I definitely have a different upbringing, but the life and reality that I have now is one of like opportunity, and I feel really lucky and grateful to have that. But I also feel like I don't want to turn up to work every day and feel like an outlier, or feel like the only one that understands a very specific cultural experience or a tone even. Sometimes it's just like as simple as tone. It's like, and I want to watch stuff that is more interesting and richer. And I also do still want to watch like the posh people stuff still. Like I actually fucking love Fleabag. I think it's a really brilliant written, and I don't think it is just for posh people. I think it's a really, like, it's funny. I quite like Motherland. Like a lot of these shows, I find some of the posh boys a bit fucking irritating, but
Is there not? Are they still doing the thing that commissioners are doing? Are they still looking for Fleabag too?
they will be looking for Fleabag too until literally like Norwich could have flooded in the climate crisis, and they'll still be going Fleabag 2. Maybe we set it on a dinghy in Norwich. Yeah, but I mean, also for me, I personally loved that show, and I really like. It's not that I'm trying to ever say we shouldn't have a couple of Nepo babies, but it's just like we can't have them all.
Yeah.
Like I'm sorry, Kate Winslet, if you're going to have 17 million children working in this industry, then please make sure that you're trying to give some opportunities to some other kids, some like people who might, not have that access and that networking prowess. Like, I hate the fact that we've turned Nepo baby into this kind of dirty word, because I don't think it's always said with a mean spirit. I sometimes think it's about trying to address a reality that is often being diverted or covered up, or not even covered up, but just like not acknowledged. And that I find really frustrating. And I'm saying that as somebody who I would say right now in this industry is having a very privileged time. But it's like I can't be asked to do a panel and all of my other peers like have had a house bought for them in London in their 20s.
Well, most people, they can't survive otherwise if they haven't.
No.
They wouldn't be able to in the arts at all.
And I really like that's another thing that I try and speak about, is that like there are a lot of people for whom rental security, just like still having to have a proper job and then still being in employment and pursuing your like creative ambition. Like there are people juggling so much instability, non-security, and like trying to figure that stuff out and still make creative work. And I watch some writers who have written like a number of 2-star plays and still somehow are writing television. And I'm like, there's a disparity there that needs to be addressed, because that isn't coming from somebody's merit. That's coming from somebody being connected and networking well and being able to ensure an opportunity. But I'm like, if that is the case, then what are you also doing to bring other people who aren't like you up with you? And that I think I find a bit frustrating.
Yeah, maybe you can have a word with them at the party tonight.
Yeah, maybe.
All.
They're all American at the party I'm going to tonight.
Oh.
Yeah.
I was going to go into like American money coming to the UK. But
well, that's the other thing that I was trying to say, is that the American, for so long, a lot of British shows, like Derry Girls, for example, were co-funded by American money, by Netflix and other ventures. So the co-pros have sort of slowed down in the last 3 or 4 years. So there's very few shows, British comedies particular, that are co-funded by America. And that has meant that the shows that tend to be, the stuff that Americans want, like the pomp and the pageantry and which is always going to have a sort of Downton Abbey-esque vision of Britain. And it's why I think it's really hard, like shows like Juice or Elmer's Not Normal or Things You Should Have Done or The Change or Phil Dunning show Smoggy Queens, like all these comedies that are really regional and specific, really super hard to try and get them on a US network at the moment. And then when you do get a US network, that's typically when your budgets get better and you can have a bit more ambition. But that disparity as well, I find a little bit sinister.
What have you got coming up? Nothing.
I don't know.
Not
really.
Sorry, I didn't mean nothing.
Am I making sense, by the way, or
No,
am I just going on a very specific rant?
Because we've spoken about something that you've got coming up, and then I realised maybe I couldn't bring it up.
No, I'm not allowed to talk about anything.
Okay, right. Nothing happening. Nothing happening here. But you are nominated for a BAFTA on Sunday.
On Sunday, yeah. And I am doing a live tour of Good Grief again over the summer. Oh, did anybody hear that? I just did a little kind of gurgle. It was like,
it was very nice.
It's because I've spoken for so long quite intensely. I do apologise.
No, you're fantastic.
But yes, I'm doing the tour again. I know, I've written a couple of pilots. I just did an adaptation of Adrian Mole for the BBC, which is really fun.
Sue Townsend?
Sue Townsend. Has anyone read Adrian Mole?
Yes.
Fuck me, it's good.
It's
some good
great.
stuff, yeah. So David Nichols, who wrote One Day, is the showrunner on it, and I've just written one episode, and it's really fun.
That's
And
brilliant.
I think it'll be great.
When's that out?
I hope it'll be out at the end of this year, but maybe the start of next. But that was really nice because it was sort of writing something that wasn't about my own life. Sort of the most non-narcissistic writing I've ever done. But yeah, but there's a few little things here and there. But no, I can't talk about them because I'm trying to make sure that they definitely get across the line.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm working really hard.
You are. I just want to make sure we've got time for questions.
Yeah, of course. What is the time?
Oh, God.
Oh, perfect. It's 2:45.
Please, can you raise your hands to... yes. Question over there.
How do you write about yourself without censoring yourself or being frightened of...
Oh.
Can I...
Yeah, that's a good question. How do you
Can I
write
repeat-
about yourself?
yeah,
Yeah,
repeat
do
the
you want to repeat
No,
it?
you repeat that question. I'll repeat. How do you... Well, I won't take credit, but... How... I forgot the question.
How do I write but without censoring yourself? I think...
Worrying about what
other people think?
Yeah.
I think with Big Boys, I was really set that everything I would write about myself would be fictionalized to a certain extent to sort of protect myself and also other people whose lives or experiences, like especially my mum. I'm always so delicate writing about my mum because I never really want her to feel weird about what I've written. So I think like knowing that there's a sort of healthy boundary between what's real or driven by truth and then what you're fictionalizing. And then also about censoring myself, I just sort of don't think I do, but I am sort of quite hyper-conscious if I'm writing about something that I know affects somebody who is real or who I like love and know.
So you navigate it by fabricating?
What, sorry?
You navigate it by fabricating?
It's like a sort of gentle fictionalization. Or sometimes I'll say to my mum, like, I want to write about this, but obviously this isn't fully your experience, but there's a truthful motivation or there's an emotional truth in it. Do you mind if I do this and make it a bit more like this? And she's like, yeah, do whatever you want. She's like, what are you doing? I'm at bingo, leave me alone. And I'm like, oh, sorry, I was just checking because I don't want you to, cancel me. I don't want to be cancelled by my own mother. But yeah, it's mostly a kind of game of like slight fictionalization. And I think as well, when you're writing something solely about yourself and when there is potential for other people to feel like you're trying to tell their story. And that's a really tricky line. And I'm sure there are some people who aren't particularly like, I don't know, who like for example, Big Boys, Jack is an only child, but I have 2 older brothers. And I do sometimes feel for them both because they're a bit like, well, yeah, you pretended that you've not even killed us off, you've not even birthed us. I was like, oh, sorry about that. Because it is their experience too, to a certain extent, but I fictionalise quite a bit to try and have that distance.
So you never wrote it and then kind of worked backwards and tried to kind of you didn't try and then fictionalise it so people were safer. You didn't write more honestly and then take it away.
I would say no. Sometimes what I would do is write a more honest version of events to start my first draft and then go, oh, I don't want that out in the world, or oh, that feels a bit too... Sometimes you've also got to like ever so slightly safeguard yourself. Like there are some things that I've written on Big Boys that sometimes I'm on the set and I'm like, oh, that's a bit much. Especially towards the end, I'd be like, oh, that's quite a weird thing to see like reenacted. But that's only ever in my experience. Like Danny is a completely fictional character. He's driven by a couple of friends of mine molded into one, but everything that happens to him and the characters around him are all fictional. Likewise with sort of all the uni friends. They're like based on like 5 or 6 people rolled into one, but they are still ultimately fictionalized. So yeah, I think...
You get any weird DMs from people being like, oh, you're writing about me?
Yeah, and I'd be like, that's not fucking about you. Sorry, Katie, that's actually not about you.
Any more questions?
How much did your degree actually come up in the very beginning of you getting opportunities, or was it purely just experience and connections based?
What would you like me to say? Are you someone who's just done a degree? Have you just done a degree?
No, I'm doing a degree and it's not creative, but I do want
To do something creative?
Field, yeah.
Okay. Personally, I have never been asked what my degree is once.
Lovely.
So, and I actually think rather than for that to make you feel like, oh, my degree's a waste, if anything, no, it's a liberation. That means whatever happens, whether you sink or swim, you're fine. I don't think anyone's ever asked me.
I've made one up.
Have you? Oh, what have you? Sydney Lima. What have you graduated
I
in?
did philosophy.
Did you?
I was there.
Where at?
Oh, I can't remember. No, like it was when
Sussex, babe.
when I first started.
It was Sussex, babe.
When
She
I
remembers
first
you.
When I
That's
first started
so
applying
funny.
for jobs, I'd made up a whole education. But
That's good.
that.
Yeah, I wish I'd done that. Yeah. But
Anyway.
yeah, I think it's just experience and also your own like kind of creative want to do whatever with whatever tools you've got at the time. But this is why I always feel like sometimes like having less is more. I think that's why so many of my favourite comedians, so much of my favourite work comes from more working class writers. It's because I actually think you've had to be a bit more resourceful. But yeah, you'll be grand. What's your degree in?
War studies.
War studies. Good for you, girl. Someone's got to study it to prevent it.
Exactly.
Precisely. No, I'm actually
I'm
fully
not a
down for
warmonger,
that.
no.
No, I do. And darling, I can tell you're not a warmonger. You've got lovely trainers on.
Thank you. Thank you for your question. Any more questions? Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, you mentioned that now, it's just so few opportunity for young people entering the comedy world. And do you have any suggestion for us if we want to make our own comedy shows, stage shows, and also make the transition from stage to TV?
Yeah, I think I do. I think it's actually about finding spaces and theatres and fringe theatres and comedy clubs that are still taking risks on people and are still wanting to get stuff made. So I really love the Soho Theatre. They do great comedy lab schemes that are quite affordable still, that really help sort of nurture new talent. I feel like Hackney Showrooms does a lot of stuff to sort of like try and get new people and puts a lot of new work on. I think it's about like finding stuff in your like local community. And I also think in terms of like making stuff, that is where, in all honesty, the internet is amazing. And that's why like I think it's really cool that I would be terrible as a sort of front-facing camera comedian, but like so many people I know who are making sketches, or like there's a collective called Simple Town I know that was just making videos, and now they're like doing like huge festivals and they've just done a feature film. And I'm like, it like there is so much more stuff that democratizes the ability to do it still. And I think like that stuff is maybe actually becoming more and more relevant now.
It's like Channel 4 and BBC are trying to like partner with YouTube to kind of get on that thing.
Yeah, what do you think of vertical comedies and vertical dramas and all that stuff?
Well, I just turned my phone sideways and no, I'm joking. I don't know. I mean, that's just because everyone now has got ADHD, I think.
It's like the commissioners, and that's what they're looking these days.
They're looking for micro drama. Yeah, it's true. There's a definite drive to that in the American world. But I think in the UK, people are always going to want stuff that's a bit more linear and a bit traditional. But I would say YouTube genuinely is like the Oscars has just signed a like 50-year deal or something to only be shown on YouTube from now on. So rather than like in the past, it used to be like, how do we watch the Oscars? Oh, you've got to be in America. You've got to be watching it on CBS, whatever. It's like now it's going to be live streamed on YouTube, a YouTube production. So much stuff is going to become essentially YouTube. That Channel 4 are even starting to put some of their comedies on YouTube at the same time as them being on like Channel 4 streaming. I think the BBC are doing that. So like YouTube is so I think even more important. And yeah, I would like write a show for YouTube, to be quite honest, because it's just really easily accessible and easily shareable and easily watchable. Like, but yeah, I hope that answers the question. There was one behind them. Yes.
Hello. as someone who unfortunately did do a journalism degree and is now unemployed, do you have any advice for the people who, even if they have experience and stuff like that, like young people of all classes, backgrounds, everything, have got degrees, are in a shit ton of debt and are now working in pubs? Do you have any advice on how to get the fuck out of that, or how to not go mental while doing that?
Well, to not go mental while doing that is to just keep creating and keep writing and keep like, I really think write everything all the time, as much as you can, as often as you can, because it is both a really good archival catalogue of all your work and really good to keep up every skill, and the more you write, the better writer you become. That is literally like, it's like the stand-up comedy, they always say, like, you've got to get your 10,000 hours. Once you've done 10,000 hours, you will be good, because you will know how many times you've been shit. And I would say, like community, having peers, having people who you can read stuff with together, having like a regular framework, meeting up with people regularly. When I was last in that position in like 2019, 2020, when I was unemployed and we couldn't get Big Boys made, I like just set up a little writers group. I would meet my friends regularly. We'd chat through stuff. Alyssa Adele, who plays Yemi in Big Boys, was kind of quite instrumental in that. We would speak all the time about writing and ideas. And I think just the more you keep that creative muscle there, it means that when and if, no, let me change it to the other way. If and when those creative opportunities arise, you're ready and you're like galvanized to like take them like by the balls. I don't know why I just used the word galvanized and balls. I've been talking too long. But yeah, I think that's like a big part of it. And then also it's cathartic. It's really good for our mental health and our like to be like really hippie. To be hippie spice for a second. Like neuroplasticity, baby. Keep writing, keep doing it, keep exercising, all of that stuff, because it all like comes out in the wash eventually, I think. Like it all helps strengthen and solidify you as a creative, irregardless of if you've just had to do like a really annoying like 8-hour shift, like in anything. So I think it is like persistence and patience and being kind to yourself and finding peers and community and people who are like going to do it with you and be in the same boat. Like that's so crucial. Even now, like I feel really lucky to have made Big Boys and BAFTA, blah, 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 blah. But like even now, I'm still chatting with Alyssa and Marwan Rizwan, who wrote Juice, and like and Phil Dunning. We're still having those same discussions about how difficult this stage now is and how do you navigate this. Like I really think all of that stuff, the most simple solution is always community and like having other people who you trust to like keep you feeling on the right track. But yeah, and I'm sorry. We all voted for Nick Clegg. We didn't realise he was going to sell us all down the river.
On that note.
Fuck Nick Clegg.
Jack, thank you so much for
thank
coming
you.
today. And good luck on Sunday.
Thanks
We
so
shall
much.
be championing you.
Fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed.
It's really nice. And thank you all so much for coming and for supporting Sydney and Rich Parents, because it's a really cool club.
Thank you, Jack.
And
Thank you.
I hope I made sense.
You did. Thank you.
Thank
Wonderful,
you.
man.